Hi, hello everyone. Welcome on into today's video. If you're new here, my name is Jade or the Jade Plant, and today I'm going to give you guys a tutorial on how I make my stream or Twitch overlays. So I use a program called Procreate. It's a one-time purchase. I think I paid $13 for it, and I believe it's iPad exclusive, but you'd have to double check that. But I will leave a link in the description box if you're curious to look into Procreate. It's what I will be using today for the tutorial. The next thing I'll be using in this tutorial is my 10.2 inch 2021 iPad. It's the Apple iPad, and 10 out of 10 if you're hoping to get into digital art, I would recommend it. The third thing I'm using in this tutorial is the Generation 1 Apple Pencil. Of course, if you don't have Apple Pencil money or you don't want to commit yet, you can buy pretty much any stylus. They actually have Apple Pencil dupes on Amazon for like $20 or $30. I personally got the refurbished Apple Pencil from Best Buy. I think it was $80 that I paid, and the regular price, I think it's like $120. So we've hopped on into my iPad screen itself, and we're actually going to start by making just your basic Twitch overlay. I'm going to give you guys a little run through of how I like to make them. So I always start with clicking the little plus sign to start a new creation. As you can see, I have one already labeled like under me, Twitch overlay. You can see the dimensions I use. I use the 1920 by 1080 pixels, and I make sure to highlight I want 600 DPI to have the best quality. I think that's usually what I like to do is 600. So we're just going to select that option. I use the same size for pretty much every overlay that I make because I think it's the most average dimension wise people use for their streams. Like, I'm literally filming right now on 1920 by 1080, so that's why I like to choose that option. If you're just getting into Procreate, I recommend, like, before following this tutorial to honestly just like go around, test some brushes that you like, and find kind of the art style that you like. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you already know sort of the art style you're wanting, but if you don't, I just recommend playing with brushes. I am going to show you my favorite brushes though, by the way. So my first favorite one, I literally use this for probably 90% of my overlays. It's called Monoline. It's under calligraphy. If you go down to the calligraphy section, it's called Monoline. I personally like to edit all of my brushes, so I'll show you some of the basic settings I choose. I pretty much just up the stabilization to like 70 and the streamline amount to 71. And then I also play with some of the taper settings, but the streamline one is the one that I find to be most useful. So this is what this brush looks like. I like to use it a lot for my writing. I just think it's really pretty, and it's really good for like thick, cartoonish line work, in my opinion. The next brush I really like to use, it's called Studio Pen. It can be found under inking. This one, I feel like I used to be obsessed with, but I don't use as much, as I don't really like how the edge of the brush looks. But this one's really nice if you're doing sort of not perfect lines. Like, the monoline is very perfect. Like, it's very straight. Some of the parts are like perfectly rounded. As you can see with the Studio Pen, it's not as perfect. And this one is nice because it actually goes, the harder you press, it responds to your pen that way to see like, I'm pressing really lightly or I'm pressing really hard. So I really like how this brush acts. I think this brush I probably use mostly for like my highlights that I like to do. Now, if I'm doing sketches, I always use this 6B pencil, and so this is what I primarily do my sketches in. I just think it's really nice and gives that like pencil look, which I really like. This one, honestly, I wouldn't even say that it's strictly for sketches. I personally like the clean, defined look, but if you're doing some sort of like rough sketch type looking photo, maybe. I know that a lot of like animes, like Studio Ghibli usually has this type of texture on their art. That would be probably what I use it for. I think it'd be very nice. So I did this earlier today. I wanted to draw some type of Halloween console, and I don't know about y'all, but I used to play with the Nintendo Switch a lot as a kid, so that's pretty much what we're gonna use here. So as you can see on my first layer, I've got my Nintendo Switch, and basically I just kind of go through, I see the style I want, I finish the sketch to see sort of where I want everything to be. I want this loading sign to be animated too, which we're gonna do. So I'll kind of give you an idea of how my sketches work. So I would turn the opacity down on here. As you can see, I'm sliding the opacity. I usually turn it down quite a bit. I'll get rid of the ghost for now. And then I would go and be like, what color should I choose? Halloween, it makes me think of orange and purple. So for this one, I am going to use the monoline pencil because I find, look how pretty it is. It's just so clean. Like, words cannot describe. So I've made a new layer, right? You always want to start working on a new layer. So there's my new layer up here. You always want to begin, if you're drawing something different, on a new layer because it makes it easier to adjust mistakes. Because you're not like drawing on your base layer and then you mess up and then you have to erase part of your art. So something Procreate does that's really nice is if you draw a straight line or you want it to be straight, you can just hold it down and then it does it straight for you. And you can edit the shape. Okay. So now that we've got most of the curves going, ta-da! We've got our first outline. Now we'll do the base. As you can see, like this type of artwork is fairly easy once you have sort of your sketch done and you have your base layer done and like the overall theme that you want to do. I find it's not too bad. And I actually find this part to be very therapeutic, just drawing like little lines. It's so comforting. Making sure everything lines up. Like, you cannot tell me that's not the most satisfying thing you'll ever see. So we've got the base done. Now we're gonna work with the inside screen. And I think I should probably put it down one size. So currently we're on 2%, 3%. We're gonna go down to 2%. And just repeat the same thing over. I forgot to mention about the sketch layer. The way I like to do sketches is by reference. So I literally own a Nintendo DS. I just had it sitting in front of me. You could probably also Google a photo of a Nintendo DS. I personally like adding details and things like that I find to be okay, but actually drawing like proportions correctly I sometimes struggle with. Just for a brief example, this one that I drew of a Nintendo Switch, I actually literally sat my Switch in the angle that I wanted and just drew it from reference. Just for example. I really like to do the round edges. Of course, you can also do square edges. My Nintendo DSi literally has more square edges than this one does, but you can see I definitely like accentuated the roundness and chose it that way. Okay, so now I've pretty much done like the outer skeleton of this DSi. Next, I'll just work on the buttons. I usually like to do the buttons a little bit bigger and on their own layer, of course, because you don't want to be messing up like that. I don't know if I want to do the buttons in this purple color. I kind of want to lean into maybe like a colder purple. Okay, so I've selected my DS layer and I'm going to just add a new layer underneath. So now you can see we're going to be drawing on the layer under the DS. Just want to make sure I have the right color. I feel like I want to do something lighter underneath. Like, this color's pretty. Like, if I were to fill it in, I'll show you guys a little trick. So I've just like randomly selected this color. We're gonna fill it in. And I usually just fill in like the edges. I don't actually like color the whole thing in because that's way too much work. Okay, like I've done all the edges, right? Just like drag your little color ball down. And don't worry, like our sketch is still under there. It's just in a lighter color, so you can't see it. I'll fill in the holes. That method isn't perfect. Sometimes you gotta fill in the little patchworks that don't get properly filled in. Go ahead and fill in the top layer just like you did with the bottom layer. Okay, so I filled everything in. Now I'm just gonna drag my sketch layer on top of the colored in layer so we can now see the buttons again. So I want to make sure I'm doing these buttons correctly. I would like to do the big boy button with maybe a darker purple. So I just hold down my finger and you can select any color on the screen. I'm just going to select this one. I'm going to go a little bit darker. So next I made a new layer and I'm just gonna write out the words loading. You can also add text in Procreate. Click on the little wrench and then you can go add to and click just add text, and they have like a bunch of generic fonts. But I personally like to just write out my own. I usually just zoom in using monoline. It's usually pretty easy to get a steady hand. So just write out whatever font or text you want to put here. Once you've written out how you like it, I'm going to make a new layer for this thing that we're going to draw. A little like loading symbol. We're going to make it move. We're going to animate it. So I'm going to show you guys how I like to do that. So I've obviously selected a new layer. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw my oval shape how I want it. I'm going to get rid of all the other layers. So I'm just going to quickly like combine down all of these guys here, all of my layers, by clicking it and pushing merge down. This is essentially our base layer. I'm going to put it above the background color for that to be like the first layer, the very base layer. And again, we're going to click on the wrench and I'm going to go to canvas and we're going to select animation assist. We're going to add a frame. You can do that by clicking here. We can add as many as we like. I like to add as many frames as you're like willing to draw because we really want it to be a smooth transition. I'm going to color this in. Wait, okay, wait. I actually want to make this the foreground. I lied. Hold on. We're going to put this way on top. I lied. Not the bottom. The top. Go back to animation assist. Foreground, because we want my dots to be behind it, right? If you're the background, you're the top layer, everything goes on top. If you're the foreground, you're the top layer, and everything goes down below. Then you just color this bad boy in. Just color her in. And I'm gonna do it again. Okay, so as you can see, I drew like the first little tick into my loading sign. I drew that 3 times, and then I drew the second tick 3 times, and then I drew the third one. I'm just about to draw it for the 3rd time here, just as an example. I don't want to be too repetitive, so we're gonna speed this up a little bit. But essentially, Just draw inside the lines, fill it in, make sure all your holes are filled in accordingly. And let's press play and hope it doesn't look too bad. See? And it, obviously we haven't finished to the end, but that's pretty much what the animation looks like. I'm gonna draw the next little tick here on my loading screen. I'm gonna add 3 blank frames at the end and see how that looks. But yeah, let's play it to see if we like it or not. I don't see what's wrong with that. I think it's pretty cute. Another thing I like to add are highlights. So essentially, highlights and lowlights would be like, I like to add these like really big gummy textures. Again, on its own layer. And I personally like to do this in Studio Pen. I just think it makes it look a lot less perfect. So then I would add highlights pretty much where the light touches every part of this device here. And then low lights, essentially I just select the color of the device. And I usually go a little bit more saturated. I don't go like darker, I go more saturated. And then I would show you sort of what a low light would look like. And I just think it adds a really nice detail. But yeah, pretty much that's how I like to do my highlights and my lowlights. I think one artist described it as like adding seasoning to your food. You don't need it, but it's like the final touch to make it good. You know what I mean? So that's essentially what I like to do. But I'm gonna play around with this a little bit, see what kind of other details I'd like to add, and then I will pop back in to show y'all the final product. Okay, I've come back. As you can see, it's been a little bit. I've added just some like random spooky themed details. As you can see, I did the highlighting. I added some like stars. As you can see, they're not perfect, but I think they're cute. That's kind of my style, is it's not perfect, it's just like doodles. But yeah, I'll press play and you can see sort of what I've done with the animation. I drew the best sleepy ghost that I could. And I added some bats and a little cobweb and a little spooky moon. If you want a further in-depth tutorial on how I like animate, or I was thinking of doing some sort of like draw with me, so I just do like a time lapse and you guys can kind of see my techniques on how I get everything lined up, I'm totally happy to do that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think that will be the end of today's video. I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. Again, this will be like my first of many tutorials. I'm still getting used to like being able to teach how I do my art, so please bear with me. If some things didn't make sense, please let me know in the comments below and I'll be able to correct myself. But yeah, I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful for knowing sort of how I like to draw overlays or for my art style. So maybe you can try creating some of your own. If you guys did find this tutorial helpful or you did like it, please feel free to like the video as well as subscribe to my channel. I am hoping to get to 1,000 subs before the end of 2022, and I think I'm about a quarter of the way there, so thank you to everyone that has subscribed to the channel. Of course, I will have all of my links down in the description box below. I'll have my shop link where you guys can find all of these overlays for download for free or either for purchase. As well as I'll have my Twitch linked, my TikTok, all of the goodies down there if you want any more information regarding this video or myself. But yeah, thank y'all for spending your time watching this video, and I will see you next time.